Have you ever wondered why the world's wealth is locked in the hands of a tiny group of corporations? We're not talking about the top 10% or even the top 5%. We're talking about just 1% of companies that silently dominate global finance, media, technology, food, and even war. But who are these companies? How did they rise to such unimaginable power? And more importantly, why is no one talking about the real game being played behind the scenes? Let's pull back the curtain and expose how the modern world has been quietly monopolized, right under our noses. 1. The hidden web. How corporate control is interconnected. Let's start with the shocking truth. According to research from the Swiss Federal Institute of Technology, over 147 companies control 40% of the global economy. But that's just the tip of the iceberg. At the core of this network sits what's known as a super entity, a tightly knit cluster of financial institutions like BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street. These companies have ownership stakes in nearly every other major corporation you can name: Apple, Coca-Cola, Pfizer, ExxonMobil, Amazon, Meta. The list goes on. What's more terrifying? These firms own each other too. This isn't competition. It's consolidation, an intricate web of cross-ownership that ensures power stays in the same hands, no matter who wins. So while we think we're choosing between products or companies, the profits often end up in the same corporate pockets. 2. The rise of financial titans. Not businesses, but owners of businesses. Here's something most people don't realize. BlackRock doesn't sell you a product. Vanguard doesn't deliver packages. These companies don't create, they control. BlackRock alone manages over $10 trillion in assets. That's more than the GDP of nearly every country except the US and China. But how? Through index funds, ETFs, and pension investments. They've built an empire by owning shares in almost everything. By managing trillions, they use proxy voting rights to influence board decisions at hundreds of companies. So, while you think CEOs make decisions, in reality, BlackRock might be the one pulling the strings. That's financial shadow governance. And you didn't vote for them. Yet they're shaping the world. 3. Monopoly through mergers. The disguised game of elimination. You might think competition is thriving, but in reality, it's being eliminated one merger at a time. Let's take a quick look at media, for example. Just 6 companies control over 90% of the media Americans consume. Disney, Comcast, Warner Bros. Discovery, Paramount Global, News Corp, and Sony. In agriculture, just 4 companies control over 70% of the world's grain trade. In pharmaceuticals, the top 10 firms own almost all the major drugs you see advertised. This level of consolidation means fewer voices, less innovation, and more control. These mergers are approved under the guise of efficiency or synergy. But the real goal? Market domination. To price how they want, lobby how they want, and move the world however they want. 4. Control the money. Control the world. How centralization shapes governments. Now here's where it gets darker. These same companies and financial institutions are also major donors, lobbyists, and policy influencers. In 2020 alone, BlackRock was appointed by the US Federal Reserve to manage bond buying programs during the COVID-19 crash. That's a private firm, managing government money. And if you trace political donations, you'll find a handful of mega corporations funding both sides of the aisle, ensuring that no matter who wins, their interests are protected. Their power goes beyond economics. It's political, regulatory, even judicial. They influence tax codes, climate policies, antitrust laws, and even wars. Because when money controls politics, democracy becomes theater. 5. Data is the new oil, and guess who owns it all? If wealth used to be measured in gold or oil, today it's measured in data. And guess who controls that? The same 1%. Companies like Alphabet, Google, Meta, Facebook, Amazon, Apple, and Microsoft. Through your clicks, swipes, searches, and locations, they own a digital version of you, and they monetize it billions of times a day. The top 5 tech giants collectively own the world's largest advertising, cloud computing, AI, and surveillance infrastructure. So, while they give you free apps, they extract your attention, your identity, your future. The new global currency is your behavior, and it's being traded at a scale you can't even imagine. 6. Why you never hear about this. Media silence and manufactured consent. Now you might ask, why isn't this all over the news? Why aren't people outraged? Simple, because the same 1% owns or funds the media too. If your news outlet relies on ads from Amazon or Pfizer, you can't criticize them. If your platform's survival depends on Google, you don't expose Google. So we live in a bubble of filtered information, carefully curated to keep the illusion alive. This isn't a conspiracy. It's corporate self-preservation. George Orwell once wrote, "The people will believe what the media tells them they believe." Today, that's not a warning. It's a strategy. 7. Can this ever be broken? The illusion of choice and what lies ahead. So is there any way out? Can this concentration of wealth ever be undone? Here's the catch. You think you have a choice, but you don't. Whether you shop at Walmart or Whole Foods, stream on Netflix or Disney Plus, or vote blue or red, you're still feeding the same machine. Real change requires massive structural shifts. Enforcing antitrust laws, breaking up monopolies, taxing wealth transparently, and resisting the idea that bigger is always better. But none of this will happen unless we wake up to the game that's being played. The first step? Awareness. Because you can't fight what you don't see. The world isn't run by kings or presidents anymore. It's run by algorithms, asset managers, and invisible hands that guide global capitalism. The question is no longer who owns what. It's who owns who. And now that you know, what are you going to do about it? If you found this eye-opening, hit that like button, subscribe, and share this video with someone who still believes the system is fair. Because the truth is, you're not losing because you're lazy. You're losing because the game was rigged before you even played.